Bienvenidos a Multiverso Ágil, un espacio donde la agilidad, la tecnología y la transformación digital se viven desde la experiencia real. Somos Alex, Ramón y Margarita y en cada episodio exploraremos prácticas, aprendizajes y conversaciones con personas expertas, referentes, que están transformando organizaciones todos los días. Porque la agilidad no tiene un único camino. Existe todo un multiverso de ideas, experiencias y prácticas por descubrir. Síguenos en todas las redes sociales y acompáñanos en este fascinante viaje. Antes de empezar, un pequeño aviso. Este episodio está en inglés. Si prefieres seguirlo con subtítulos en español, te recomendamos verlo en YouTube y activar los subtítulos automáticos. Esperamos que lo disfrutes. Today, we travel to England to meet our special guest, Rich Allen. Together, we'll explore user needs mapping. Welcome to your favorite podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Multiverso Ágil. Today we are exploring one of the most fascinating ideas I've come across with organizational designs in recent years. For years, we've talked about Agile, DevOps, team topologies, domain-driven designs, yet organizations continue struggling with exactly the same problem. Teams become more specialized, architectures become more complex, processes become more sophisticated, yet alignment somehow becomes harder. Today's guest proposes a different starting point, not technology, not teams, not software, people and their needs. Richard, welcome to Multiverso Ágil. It's an honor to have you here. Could you present yourself, please?
Certainly, thank you very much. Very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So, my name's Rich Allen. I'm a socio-technical architect or organization design consultant. So, I generally work with organizations of all sizes, small startups up to large enterprises, to rethink their organizations and maybe look at how they're organized from a slightly different lens.
That's great. Hey, Richard, reading your book, we had the feeling that you didn't write another framework. You wrote a bridge, right? A bridge connecting strategy, organizational design, architecture, and delivery. We wonder if that was your intention.
Yes, 100%. So there's already enough kind of frameworks and ways of doing things and processes, and all of those things are out there. And what I was really looking to do with user needs mapping is to bring those things together. So not to necessarily throw in a whole new technique, but to actually bring together things that are already out there that maybe people have struggled with or struggled to get their heads into, and how do we make it more accessible and more easy to consume. So user needs mapping is really bringing together a lot of those techniques that I've experienced in my past and history to help others kind of pick them up sooner than I did. So it took me many years to kind of get my head around these things, and user need mapping for me is a way to bring those things together.
Okay. In the user needs mapping, of course, the book, there were already incredible ideas available in jobs to be done, Wardley Mapping, domain-driven design, team topologies. What problem keep repeating itself that convinced you another conversation was still needed?
Yeah, so I've been a software developer for over 2 decades. So I started back in 1999, graduating university with a degree in microelectronics. And my first kind of job was actually in a startup that was doing work for BAE systems and kind of defense organizations. So and that was very much waterfall design. So we are actually building a product called the V design system. So the V being, you start off with requirements, you go down the V, getting more and more clarity, and then you come up the other V to kind of then verify those requirements. So very much a waterfall process in safety critical systems. So it's really essential to kind of have that traceability back to those things. But early on, whilst I was working there, we were applying the same waterfall approaches to our software design that we were building for our clients. And I felt even back then, it was like, well, why are we working in the same way? Because we're not building safety critical systems. We don't need that level of process. And actually this was back in 2003. So it was just when sort of the Agile manifesto and all of those things were actually being formed. And I was an early adopter of that. So I actually was the first person in that company to introduce our first stand-up, where we got everyone in a room and said, like, daily stand-up, what is it we're doing? But we were using all the kind of tools like UML diagramming tools, and we would have one group of people that were doing that design, and then we would have the developers doing the development, and there'd be lots of handovers between. So we were working in very waterfall way, and we came across those classic kind of, well, I designed it this way and then we implemented it, and that's not what I designed, and then so lots of kind of challenges. So actually the problem for me started really early on, and then I continued doing the software development. I was working with various different companies, and whenever I would go in as a coder, a hands-on coder, but I would always sort of gravitate to like a team lead position, where I would kind of look around me and say, well, why are things are kind of slower than they should be or could be. So how can we start to optimize those things? And that then continued until around about 2015 or so. I was then working with a company called Pure Gym in the UK, which is a growing fitness company. And they were looking to bring their software team in-house. So they'd grown, they were really successful, but they didn't actually have any development teams in-house. I was one of the first kind of people to work with them to help grow that team. And again, when that team started small, everybody knew everyone. There was high trust between people. We all knew the stuff that we were working on. But as the organization grew, as we were adding more and more people into the organization, we were starting to do the classic kind of, we hire people into the functional areas, or we are running sort of project-based work. So we would spin up a team, we would do some work in an area of the system, and then we would put that team down, and then we'd start up another team. And as you kind of scale up, that's often the way you work. You have to know all of the different areas. But as it starts to grow, you have certain people that have a certain silo of knowledge, so they understand, they become the expert in that area. And then you have others. And as you add more and more people, the knowledge starts to diversify. You start to rely on those individuals to come in and address those issues. And basically the same kind of patterns. And I often see many organizations, we reach a point where when we start to hire, we organize around our functional silos. So whether it's like a QA department or the development department, or whatever those departments are, we're hiring into those. But the way in which the work actually flows, the work flows across the organization. And if we're not mindful of how we actually organize both the people and the work and the technical things, then that's where, as the organization grows, we introduce accidental complexity. So we start to build things because of the way that we're organized, and we're not intentional about those things. So it starts to become, for me, many organizations grow the technology side without really paying attention to the social side, the people side, and grouping or organizing those people in a way that becomes effective as the organization changes. And that's really kind of what user needs mapping is very much about, is how can we help the organization to see things differently and see how the socio side maps to the technology side.
Rich, actually this is totally connected with the idea that why you started with the person and not software, teams, or architecture. Do you think the organizations often design themselves backwards? I think this introduces the idea of the outside in thinking, you know? What you were thinking when you tried to explain this in your book?
Yeah, exactly. So the way I kind of try to frame it is that when we're looking to hire, when organizations are thinking about where to add people, they're looking at how they're organized from the inside. So the organization chart kind of determines how people are structured, where we should add people. But when, often organizations say they're user-centric, but actually the reality is when you look at, well, are we actually aligned in a way that enables us to be as user-centric as possible? And often when you look inside and look from the inside out, that's not the case. We're always talking about kind of business metrics and how do we make the business successful, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, even in like SAFe, the big kind of SAFe framework, it's like, well, where's the user in SAFe? Like it's all about process and Kanban and Agile, but who is it we're actually serving? So that's the idea then of outside in thinking is what does your organization look like from the outside, from the user that you're actually delivering or looking to deliver value to? So who is that user, and then what is it they actually need? And by using that as the starting point, it allows us to reframe our thinking to say, if this is who we're serving and this is what they actually need, how does the work then actually flow through the organization in order to meet those particular needs? And so by taking an outside-in lens, we try to bring focus to the fact that these are the users that we're actually serving. This is why we exist. And even as we go further down into the organization, which is often where we lose a lot of that context. So if you're working in an internal platform team or an operations team, like they feel very, very disconnected from the actual user, we don't have customers, we don't have users. But the reality is they do. It's just that their customers and their users are the other internal teams. And so they're actually making and helping those teams to become more aware of the needs of the other users, which are the teams within the organization, can actually help them, give them context and say, so how I help this team, if I help this team to deliver value quicker, they can help the user get their value quicker. And so by starting from the outside in, we can start to work all the way through the organization with focusing on user needs all the way through.
Yeah, that's an amazing concept, Rich, about outside in and inside out. Please, could you explain for all the audience a little bit more about which means this, what means this concept, please?
Mm-hmm. So for me, the outside in kind of philosophy or idea is there's constant talk about who the user is. So who is the user we're actually serving and what are their needs? So by starting there, that starts to then define how work flows. So I wonder if, I'll show that in a minute. But basically, because we always lose, or companies seem to always lose focus on what the outcomes are that matter. So the outcomes that matter is how do we make the user kind of achieve their desired outcomes. the needs that they're trying to do. And that outside in thinking, always keeping mindful of that, allows us to then frame, well, if that's the particular user need that we need to satisfy, what capabilities do we need as a team in order to meet that particular need? So we're driving what we actually need as a team to deliver from the need of the user. Inside out thinking, on the other hand, is often we're a platform that provides virtual machines or something, and so we're not going to ask the teams what they actually need. We're not going to ask the developers what they need. What we're going to do is build this amazing platform based on Kubernetes and Helm charts. We're going to build the best kind of internal platform we possibly can. And then you ask them, and who are you building it for? And what problems are you solving with that platform? It's like, well, we're building this amazing platform. It's really cool and it's really amazing. But they don't know who's actually consuming it. They're not tracking who's adopted it. They're not tracking any of those things. So this inside out thinking is very much focused on what exists today rather than what it is the user actually needs. So if you were to then look at building that platform, no platform should exist unless there's a need from the teams that need it in-house. So, and no product should exist, right? The whole point of products is to help people, humans, to get things done, to solve problems. And when we think inside, I need to build a mobile app. Cool. What does it do? Who's it for? What problem is it solving? And way too often we forget about that side of things, and we just focus on the inside out. So this solution's amazing. Yay. We think it's great. We fall in love with our solution, but actually what problem is it solving? And that's what we need to be focusing on.
Yeah, Rich. And about that, this is where user needs mapping connects with team topologies. Team topologies answers, how do we organize teams? And user needs mapping answers first, around what should we organize them? So what do you think about this connection?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm just going to show you this. So let me see what you think. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Well, good. Yes. So it's a blank screen currently. So when we start to talk about team topologies, we always talk in terms of the flow of value, right? So the value in this case is flowing from left to right. And what we often see in many organizations is that the value flow is typically something like this, where the business starts to determine what it is that they actually want to do. They kind of collaborate with some sort of project management office. That's handed over to different business analysts or architects or security tech leads. They sort of assess the feasibility of it, and they work out how big it's going to be. Then they kind of hand it off to the analysts to then plan it in and do all of those things. And then eventually it's handed to the team. So we have a kickoff with a team that's actually going to then deliver the work. And they all start work at the same time, and we try and coordinate that work across those teams. But those teams are sort of coupled in time, so we can't actually deliver anything independently. They have to wait for other teams to finish their bits first, and they also have to coordinate and synchronize and do all of those things until kind of finally it might be handed over to an operations team. And then if we're lucky, the business might actually say, well, did it actually work? Right. So that's a kind of common flow of value that I often see. Does that kind of resonate with you? Do you often see that kind of flow of value?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So most people do, right? So, and there's a few challenges with this. So this is like what we call a team interaction model in team topologies. you'll notice it's not using stream-aligned teams, it's not using platforms. And that's because even though in the book they mention kind of stream-aligned teams and platform teams, what I found was when I started working with organizations, people started just calling, oh, that's a stream-aligned team, it's a platform team. It's like, if it's not actually got all of the capabilities it needs to deliver end-to-end value without doing handovers, it's not really a stream-aligned team. So how can we actually make it more obvious? So we introduced this idea of an undefined team type, which is what you see here. The kind of gray box represents it's a team, but it's not a team in team topologies terms. So then basically what we find is like it's way too late. Like the actual teams that are doing the work is way too late in the time frame. Now this particular talk was related to AI, and if we introduce AI, say, into this situation, right? So if the environment in which we're introducing AI is not set up for the flow of value, what we'll then typically find is, well, we're just going to throw AI bots and chatbots everywhere, right, across the whole organization. And the problem is you might generate kind of requirements faster and produce analysis faster. You might generate code faster, but ultimately you're kind of building up quicker stuff. If the actual the flow of value isn't optimized, then we're just generating more and more work, and we're having to work with all of that. So then it kind of comes about for me, and this is where it really comes in, is that the missing anchor is then, well, who is the user and what are their needs, and how are we actually organized, or are we organized in order to enable that to happen? So then if we treat user needs then as like the north, this is where we need to organize ourselves. That influences the way we structure the teams. So I will jump all the way down to this one. So this is the chain of influence that I introduced in the book, which is ultimately the needs of the user shapes what the work is that we need to do. The type of work that we need to do will then influence the humans and the technology that we need in order to meet that. That's the socio-technical part of the system. And then the output that they produce is the thing that then meets the need. And so by thinking about user needs in that way, we can then start to reason about, well, what if we were to organize our teams around meeting those user needs, right? So what would it take for a particular team to have all of the capabilities that they need to meet those needs without doing handovers? And that's really kind of the team topology side of things comes in, which is where, you know, the flow of value is, we understand what the user wants, we understand what they need, we know and recognize what capabilities we need. Now, two key principles in team topologies are flow of value and cognitive load. So when we ask the question, well, if this is the work we need to do in order to meet the need, we can then ask the question, could a team of 5 to 9 people own the delivery of that value end to end? And the answer could be yes, 100%, that's no problem. But equally, the answer could be no. And if it's no, that then drives the question, well, we still want that stream of delivery. We want to be able to deliver value end to end. So in terms of then the cognitive load of the team, what can we do to reduce the cognitive load of the team that would enable that team to then deliver end-to-end value? And so we make decisions in what support that team needs in terms of flow of value and cognitive load. And that would then drive, what do we then need the other team types in team topologies terms, which are platform teams, which are there to reduce what we refer to as extraneous cognitive load, and enabling teams, which are there to upskill and simplify intrinsic cognitive load. And so really that's where the kind of team topologies angle comes in that the user needs starts to shape where our first decisions around the boundaries of ownership might come in and what type of cognitive load we might need. And then we use team topologies, reasoning and enabling constraints to help think about how the teams could be organized differently. Does that make sense?
Of course, yes. I mean, this is a really clever idea, I think. So this, the idea that you bring in your book is like the glue, not to mix framework, but to stick all of them. We are talking about jobs to be done. We are talking about some team topologies. We are talking about so many things. And your change of influence became my favorite concept of the book. Like, user need, work capabilities, cognitive load. It is really important to get to know all of these things. Team boundaries, interactions, flow of value. All of this is really important. So, you are not replacing any framework. You are connecting them in order to have all the ideas connected and using them. I mean, it's not like inventing something, it's using what it is existing in order to give a different value to the users, to the organizations, to use your book to map all these things, So one idea really stayed with me, the distinction between requests, pain points, jobs, needs, requirements, features. Why do organizations confuse these concepts often?
Why do they confuse them? Absolutely. That's a good one. Let me come back to one here. Right. Let's just go here, right? So often what we find is like you will have senior stakeholders or people within the organization who kind of have an idea, like they have a want, they want something, or they've seen something, or most stakeholders actually and founders actually have a kind of good gut feel of why they might want something. Often it's like we need an AI chatbot, right? And that could be because of competition, or they're kind of fearful of, if we don't get an AI chatbot, it's we're going to fall behind and we're not going to survive in the modern world. And that's kind of fine, but too often we sort of take those surface level wants. I want an AI chatbot, but we don't ask the question, but what do we want it for? Who are we actually serving? And what are we actually trying to achieve with it? So we often kind of mistake a statement of a want with a missing of an underlying user need, or we don't go and find what the user need is. So these are just some examples of some potential underlying needs, and that's where the needs for me comes from Simon Wardley's kind of thinking around there's the actual explicit needs where someone knows exactly, like, I definitely have this problem, but there's also the implicit needs where the user doesn't necessarily know what they want, but they've got a problem to solve. So there we might need to kind of go uncovering, looking for what they're unable to articulate what the actual solution is, or what their underlying need is. So if you think about like Henry Ford's quote, whether he actually said it or not is debatable, but if I'd have asked the users what they want, they would have said faster horses. And often that's because the customer or the user is constrained by the technology and the things that are in their environment. Like, they can't think beyond that. Whereas people that are innovating, the companies that are kind of looking to the future, thinking about those different things, they've got more insights into the world around them, the more they've got greater situational awareness. And so by interviewing and talking with the users, you can kind of go, this is actually what they're trying to achieve. And now I can reason about a solution based on all of the concepts that are in my head. And so you could kind of look at user needs map as that kind of thing. So I saw many people looking at Wardley mapping, and they would be kind of overwhelmed by it. Like, there's so much to Wardley mapping that I'm just not going to bother learning it because it's just too much to it. And same with kind of jobs to be done. There's just so much to kind of understand about jobs to be done. I'm not going to bother learning about that. Or domain-driven design, all of those things. So I have to understand aggregates and context, like very, very technical in nature. And so from my perspective, user needs mapping, like I kind of recognize that there is a need for people that you could get value from just people speaking in terms of user and needs. You don't necessarily have to drop into the evolution axis and doctrinal principles and leadership stratagems, which are all the things that Wardley mapping kind of brings to the table. And so it kind of, we don't spend the time really trying to understand what's the underlying need of the user, and we respond too quickly to the stakeholders' wants. So we want this, but we don't then try to understand. Now, because we don't necessarily understand what it is the user needs, we might have to do a hypothesize what that need is. So our assumption is they have this need, and that's when we might need to experiment and put it in front of the user and say, based on our previous conversation, we thought you meant this. Is this what you meant? Right? And then we get feedback, and then we can improve on it. And that's why Agile, fast feedback loops, DevOps, all of those things is about speed to deliver value, but also then feedback loops. So we need the fast feedback loops in order to iterate. And we're always saying, hey user, we think you need this. Is this what you needed? No, it doesn't solve my problem. Okay. And so the whole purpose of Agile is to serve a user and a user need. But it all became too much of inside out thinking and going, Agile is the process. Agile is story points. Agile is velocity. And it's not. Agile Manifesto is delivering working software quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Rich. So Steve Jobs famously said, people don't know what they want. Your model begins by understanding needs. Was Steve Jobs wrong, or was he talking about something completely different?
So, can you repeat that question? Sorry.
Sure, no problem. Steve Jobs famously said, people don't know what they want. Yep. Your model begins by understanding needs.
Yep.
Was Steve Jobs wrong, or was he talking about something completely different? This is more about wants and needs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess I kind of answered that with a Henry Ford quote, because it's a very similar thing, right? So
yeah.
When you think about Steve Jobs and the iPhone, nobody said they wanted a phone with no buttons, right? And at the time, the BlackBerry was all the rage, and it had keyboards on it and everything. But if you said, hey, do you need a phone that doesn't have any buttons on it? It's like, what? No, that's crazy. I want a phone with buttons on it. And again, that's the kind of the context in which the customer is seeing things. They can only see the solution is a better version of what I already have. And then Steve Jobs is then kind of that forward thinking, situational awareness, recognition of technology, the capability of the technology. And essentially, the iPhone becomes, how do we eliminate the hardware bit? Because we can't change the hardware. So how do we make the hardware really accessible, but then we're able to use software then to change the experience and make it a constantly evolving kind of experience for them. And so the iPhone, the first iPhone, I don't know if you were around when it came out, but it was a little bit naff. It was pretty naff. But now you can't go anywhere without one, right? And so you have to have those hypothesized needs, and you're still trying to solve the underlying problem that the user has. What's the outcome that they're trying to achieve? So what are you actually using a phone for? What's the intent? Why do you need the phone? And what he did was able to, rather than a phone previously was, I need to call or stay in touch with my parents. With the iPhone, he introduced, like, you're solving so many needs in one place. So now, I need to check my work email, whatever those things are. I need to stay in touch with my work, or I need to, all of those things have been enabled through the phone itself. So it kind of, he's unlocked a whole bunch of meeting of needs through the mobile device itself. And that was the big kind of shift for me from the iPhone perspective, is the mechanism in which we could then unlock other user needs, and meeting of other user needs kind of exploded, and having the marketplace and all of those kind of things which just didn't exist before the iPhone.
Thank you, Rich.
Rich, many readers might think user needs mapping is about users. I actually think it is about organizations learning to think together about these needs and how to bring the best value or deliver the best value. And eventually, everything leads to this cognitive load. What did you discover about cognitive load that Team Topologies made possible to understand differently?
Yeah, 100%. So I kind of mentioned it slightly earlier, but so Team Topologies introduced this cognitive load idea. So cognitive load theory has been around for a while, which a guy called John Sweller, and essentially it's like the total mental capacity that we have as human beings to be able to work and reason about problems. And what Team Topologies kind of brought to the table was this concept of team cognitive load. So if one human being has a capacity, then as a team we've kind of got that capacity as well. And there's really kind of brought it to the mainstream of there are three different types of cognitive load. So there's the extraneous cognitive load, which is things that are related to getting the job done, but they're not essential to be able to get that work done. So if you're a software developer, you might need to deploy some software using continuous integration pipelines, or if you're a chef and you need to sell your food, you might need to produce the menus. So they're an essential item in order to sell the thing, but you don't necessarily need to do those things on a day-to-day basis. So that's extraneous cognitive load. And then the other type is intrinsic, which kind of relates to the skills that you need, the intrinsic skills that you need to actually do the job. So again, sort of as a software developer, like how do I write unit tests? How do I write the code? All of those bits. And as a chef, how do you chop food really quickly? Or how do you kind of bring different ingredients together to create an amazing meal? Right? They're the intrinsic skills that a chef might have. And the idea is that ultimately that we look to simplify intrinsic cognitive load. So how do we make it as easy and simple as possible for people to learn what the skills are, the capabilities they need to get the job done. And then with extraneous cognitive load, how can we minimize that? So they still need to do the work, but how do we minimize the amount of cognitive load that it takes? So instead of a software team having to learn about Terraform, coding and Kubernetes Helm charts and all of those kind of things, how do we abstract that away so they don't have to understand all the complexities, but they can just kind of click a button and their need is still met? So they still need to have good monitoring, all of the skills that they need as a software team to be able to do those things, deployments, pipelines, all of those things, but they don't necessarily need to know everything about them. So we use those two, reducing extraneous cognitive load, simplify intrinsic cognitive load, in order to maximize germane cognitive load, which is really to sort of focus on the problem that team is trying to solve. And so team topologies really kind of brings those two core principles, this idea of focusing on the flow of value whilst reducing cognitive load. And essentially, user needs mapping is a route into that. So we start with the user, what do they need? And then using team topologies principles around cognitive load. And by focusing on cognitive load, we actually improve staff morale. We look at context switching. We enable, like, what does it take for the workplace to be more humane in the long run? So if people are highly stressed and they're under a lot of cognitive load, then it's not a very pleasant workplace. So it's really, really important. Flow of value is obviously delivering value through the organization to satisfy the business and the user needs. But then the cognitive load is how do we actually meet the needs of the internal staff and the people to make sure that they're actually happy and have high staff satisfaction and all of those things. So cognitive load is such an important part for me anyway to pay attention to. So we use that then to reason about how our teams are then structured.
Thank you, Rich. And about the future, your artificial intelligence chapter raises a question. Today, organization asks, how do we use AI instead of what need we are trying to satisfy? As artificial intelligence becomes part of delivery, how do you use user needs mapping evolving over the next 5 years?
Cool. Well, definitely. So I think this is kind of how I sum up AI, right? So in the chapter, I said that AI is an amplifier, which was quite nice because I wrote the book in October and then the actual DORA report came out in November, I think, and it said the same thing. So, woo! But ultimately, AI will amplify the system that it's put into. So if you have a dysfunctional system with lots of handovers, lots of coordination, lots of slow work, it's going to amplify that dysfunction. And if that's going to happen with AI, we need to make sure that we improve the system that it's going into before we introduce AI, or we need to address it. So we're not saying like, don't start using AI, but you might not be experiencing the biggest value you would get from AI if you don't address the kind of human system. So for me, user needs mapping is a way for organizations to start reasoning about how they can organize in a way that's actually going to maximize their chances of success with AI adoption. So if I carry on through here, so ultimately, like we get to here. So this is like an example user needs map where obviously not real user needs, but the user is the anchor. We have some needs that are being met, and we potentially said that these teams, so the yellow boxes, are our streamlined teams, and they might own those particular capabilities. So this is the things that are going to enable value to be delivered to meet those particular user needs. And so by being clear about who the user is, what their needs are, we give the teams context. We give them the ability to evolve their kind of autonomy, mastery, and purpose, the key things that human intrinsic drivers. And so by bringing in a good human context, a good human environment, it also really serves well for the AI context. So the boundaries in which the team ownership sits, it means that we can start to reason much more clearly about where AI could be more effective within the different areas. So if we take this kind of example, so this passenger, which is the organization from the book. So, when I worked with passenger, AI wasn't a thing. But as an example, so this particular passenger, his need is, I need to find out where my bus is, or I need to find out whether my journey is being disrupted, right? So, and we have certain capabilities within the organization that enables those things to happen, such as live bus information, disruption detection, etc. So once we start to map the organization this way, instead of it being about departments and technology and infrastructure and marketing, we could say, well, actually, how could AI help kind of in this particular area? How can it improve live bus information? Well, it could start to summarize the impact of that information. It could start to detect disruptions earlier, because the earlier I get to find out if my journey is going to be disrupted, then that's going to be better for me. It could be that there's alternative routes that could be useful in here, or it could be that we're tailoring messages based on how we're actually delivering those things. So by using the user needs kind of map as a context, we can actually start to say, well, actually it makes a lot of sense to introduce AI here as an improvement to the existing solutions and systems. But when we look at things from the kind of org chart lens, and just build me an AI solution for who, for what, who are we serving, why do we need it? So for me, user needs mapping, obviously I'm biased, but is an essential tool for kind of reasoning about your organization structure and how to structure it in a way that's going to make AI adoption much more effective.
Actually, I think this is a good topic to, keep digging or going deeper, because it is an important topic. I keep wondering, once we've designed the organization, how do we, in a smart way, distribute work between humans and AI without increasing cognitive load, without breaking the flow, for example. So I believe your book opens the door to that conversation and could be a really good topic in the future to keep working in, Well, I like to finish with two reflections. First, after writing this book, has your own understanding of customer needs changed? And what surprised you the most during that journey about writing the book? And finally, imagine someone opens user needs mapping 10 years from now. What do you hope remains timeless because it's fundamentally human? And what do you hope has completely changed because we've learned to design organizations differently?
Nice. Okay. Cool. Remind me of the first question.
Yes. Many questions came to my mind.
The book. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So,
has your own
yes,
understanding? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. So obviously, so when I joined the Team Topologies kind of core team, I brought user needs mapping kind of with me as a technique that I've been using with my clients to help reason about those things. And it became a useful tool, and then it became adopted as a foundational tool in the Team Topologies practice. So you won't find it in the Team Topologies book because it was introduced kind of after that. I think Matthew Skelton's actually writing another book called Adapt Together soon, which will actually include a call out to user needs mapping as an essential kind of tool. But really, yeah, the act of writing the book helped me to focus on, well, who am I writing it for, right? What do they need? And it kind of all tied together, because ultimately I'm hoping, that the book lands with people, because I've really thought about, I'm seeing Wardley Mapping, I'm seeing domain-driven design, I'm seeing all of these things, and no one's really connecting those things together. So that was my sort of aha moment, is this is a Steve Jobs moment where I can see things and something's missing in the middle. And so user needs mapping is my way of saying, look, we need to increase the number of people talking in terms of users and needs, because that enables the future. Like the start, if we don't get that right, then the rest is you're doing the wrong thing anyway. You're starting at the wrong point, right? So start with user needs, get those right, get that clarity from that. So from writing the book, it was very much about that, and trying to also what we call de-jargonify, right? So how do I say the right thing without saying stream-aligned team, and without saying platform team, and without saying aggregate and doctrine, and so how can we make things consumable without exceeding people's cognitive load? So I'd say that's the lessons from the future of user needs mapping. I really would love to see organizations increasing their situational awareness in general, and creating much more humane work environments where people are happy and joyful. And whether they're using user needs mapping itself, I don't really care about that. It's much more, are the environments I'm going into kind of joyful and not frustrating for everyone? So that's kind of my underlying driver, really, is how do we make workplaces much more enjoyable? What that looks like with AI, obviously AI is going to shift things significantly. We don't know the impact that it's going to have on jobs and all of those things. The world is changing, and organizations need to adapt, right? Organizations need to adapt in order to work with AI in whatever form it eventually takes. And for me, I guess, in the same way that COVID accelerated remote working, I think that AI is accelerating the need for good organization design. And so I just really hope that user needs mapping becomes a key tool to enable organizations to adapt and evolve in a way that's going to make them successful in the AI era.
Thank you, Rich. And before we finish, where can people connect with you? Where can they follow your work? Where can they find the book, for example?
Cool. So a couple of resources then. Basically, the book can be found at userneedsmapping.com. If you're interested in giving it a go, there's a couple of Miro templates and a Miro tool. So if you use Miro, it's on there. Always welcome to receive sort of community contributions or feedback. I'd love if people are experimenting with it and want to give me a call or whatever. I'm open to DMs, all of those kind of things. If you want to kind of reach out to me, I've got richallen.info as a website. So come along to that. It tells you everything that I can do and how I can generally help. And then also kind of a little bit exciting time for me at the minute. I'm currently actively building a tool to kind of take user needs mapping hopefully to the next level, but also introduce some of the other techniques. User needs mapping is one technique that we use when working with organizations, along with kind of team interaction modeling, value stream mapping, event storming, all of those things. And so I'm currently working on a tool which I've just launched a beta for, which is called the Fast Flow Toolkit. So it's an invite-only beta currently, working with organizations to essentially kind of take their user needs map and take it out of Miro and start to really take advantage of the data that we're collecting during workshops. It doesn't just get left in Miro. We can actually bring it into a real world graph of our systems. And so that's the thing that's keeping me busy at the moment.
Thank you, Rich. This is amazing information. Please, people that we are checking this podcast, follow Rich. He is an expertise in the world. So really, we appreciate your time, Rich.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you not only for writing a book, but for inviting us to rethink how organizations should be designed. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us today. For everyone listening us, thank you for joining to another episode of Multiverso Ágil. We'll see you in the next conversation, and we hope, Richard, to have you here in the next episodes. We are expecting great things from you.
For your next book, Rich, please.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's in the pipeline. But yes, thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if you've got any questions, anyone out there has questions about it, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much for your time.
See you in the next.